We're going to be making an app that has an image that does different random things, one when you run the app and two when you press different buttons. So I'm just going to go to refresh this to show basically right now it's an earth. And each time I run the app, so this is starting the app over again, it's gonna, this time it happened to pick the earth again, but you can see the colors changed. And this time it picked a moon and the colors changed again. So when I press colors, we'll see that the background and the image colors are changing. When we pick location, it's going to pick a different location. You'll also notice that the size is changing. And then the shape, each time I press shape, it's going to pick a different shape, random different shape. So we're now going to start this and start to code this. So right now we have, and this should be the template you open, the 3 buttons, the 1 image, and then I also have a list of image options. Now I purposely left one out. So I am going to click on my image. I'm going to go to design. And specifically, I want a star image. So I'm going to go to image and star, and I'm going to pick for it to be the star right now. I'm going to copy that and get rid of it because I really don't want to have something picked right now. And I am going to add that to the end of the code. So the other ones I already have, so we don't have to search for them. Those are the other image options, but we're going to add one more. So you can go ahead and do that process, right? So basically design, search for the image icon link, and then put that in your list. So the first thing we want to happen is just when we run this program, we want it to pick a random image. So I'm going to create a variable up here called random image index. And that's going to be choosing a random number from this image, from the indexes of the image options list. I can't directly pick it. I have to pick a number and then set something to the list at that number. So down here, I'm just choosing, I could do both steps at once, but I'm choosing just to declare it up here and then give it a value down here. So I'm going to say random image index equals a random number. I'm going to change over to blocks after I do this. Which I meant to do from the beginning, but it's not really a big deal. So the indexes of image options list go from 0 to image options list.length -1 because we know the length of the list is always 1 more than the value of the indexes because we start at 0. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to turn over to text and then just add the -1. So I'm going to console log random image index, and we'll just see what's happening here. So I got a 2, I got a 5, and if I ran this, I would see that it always falls in that range I want. So I'm going to get rid of this now. So once I pick that random number, I am going to set the image. So go to my UI controls. And actually, we're going to use set property. So set property. I named this icon 0. So I'm going to type in icon 0. I'm going to change its image to one of these choices in image options list at the random image index. Okay, so that's what I'm using for my index, that random number I picked. So if we run it now and run it a few times, we see nothing else is changing, but I am getting random images. Now, the other time I want this shape to change is with the shape button. So there's a couple different ways I could do this. I could get everything changing from the beginning, or I can make something and then also put it in the button that it belongs in. So I'm just trying to get rid of this comment now. So I'm going to get a event handler next for the shapes button. Now, I'm going to need to reset this random image index. If I just put this block in, then basically I'm just going to get the same thing that I had before. So I'm going to copy that. Pick a new random image index each time, and then reset the shape to be at that index. So now if I run the app, go back over to blocks. If I press the shapes button, I see the same thing is happening. So I also need it up here because at the beginning, I want it to pick something so it's necessary in both places. So the next thing we're going to work on is the location. So that's probably the next easiest one. So when I change the location, it also changes the size. So I'm going to be using this block, set position. I'm going to put this here, not an event handler, of icon 0. Now, I'm going to directly put in the random number here for the X value and Y value, which are the first two parameters. So I'm going to go over here and put a random number in both of them. And for X, I am going to go from 0 to 250. And for Y, I'm going to go from 0 to 400. Those are the X and Y values. Now I want the length and the width and the height to be the same. So I'm going to use another variable just to keep everything organized. I'm going to create the variable up here, and I'm going to call the variable random size. So I'm going to set the value of that variable down here. And I'm going to choose a random size between 25 and 125. And if you were making your own app, you could play around with these numbers. That's just what I found worked. Now, the reason that I can't pick separate random numbers for these two is because I want them to have the same value. So I have to store that outside and then use that in both spots. Whereas the X and the Y value, I don't want to be the same. So it's fine. I want to have different random numbers chosen for those two. So I'm going to put random size in both of these spots. So now I see it's in a random location. I'm picking a random image, a random location, a random size. So the next thing we're going to do is bring in our event handler and copy that code into it. I'm going to move this one up just a little bit. Go back to my toolbox. I just moved it over so I could type something in. So we're going to do this one for the locations button. We're going to copy it over. Our text. These are our two lines that we want to repeat every time we click that locations button. I'm going to paste those in. So testing it again. It looks like it's working. Our last thing we want to change is the colors, and we're going to be changing the background color, but we're also going to be changing the color of the icon. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to put that code in here. And I am going to be doing two set properties. I'm going to give a little spacing just so we can focus on that part of it. So we're going to set the property of icon 0, not icon 0, we're going to do background first, of the home screen, background color. Now what we need to do here is we're going to do an RGB value. So I'm actually going to start out on this one. And we're also, it's red, green, blue, and then transparency. So that's how kind of like see-through or like the shading of the background. For transparency, first off, I'm going to do 0.3. That just kind of makes it lighter, like what I want. Now in each of these three spots, I'm going to be placing a random number, okay? Now, I'm going to see if I can drop this in, but I might have to type this in. Yeah, it's not going to let me drop it there. So if I did, yeah, we're going to have to type. So random number, making sure I write it exactly as I see up here. Now to choose a random number for each of the RGB, I want to pick a number between 0 and 256. So I'm going to close this off. We might not even be able to see all of it. So I'm just going to copy this and put that also in the green spot and the blue spot. So once I click off of that, that should change back over to the text. I can scroll down a little bit, and if you want to see it, so we're picking a random number for the background color. So if I run it now, I should see that random color for the background. So because my random color for the icon is so similar, I'm just going to copy and paste this line of code. Once again, I want the red, green, and blue to have different numbers, so I'm not using one variable to store for all of them. So when I go back over here, I just need to change this to icon 0. And instead of background color, we are going to do icon color. Unfortunately, that did not copy properly, so I'm going to have to go back over here. I wasn't watching closely to see what happened, and I'm just going to copy this part of it, making sure I get that parentheses. Now, for the icon, I find that a transparency of 0.8 makes it show up from the background a little better. So let's just run this now. So now we see our icon is changing color, our locations are still working, our shapes are still working, and now we just have to add our colors event handler. So I am going to go back to blocks, get another event handler, for colors button, and then I'll copy my associated lines of code. Now each time we do the colors button, we do want the background to change too. So I'm going to copy those 2 lines, put that down here, and now we can press run. Let's just get some spacing in there. So now I see the colors are working, the location is still working, and the shape is changing.